I've had a number of people recently ask me for tips on making katana blades in dreams. If you follow me, you know that I love making swords. Digital blacksmithing is kind of my thing. So I've been exploring different ways to do it. There's a ton of different ways you can do it. I think this might be one of the easiest ways, so let's check it out. Alright, so create a new element. First thing I always do is set up my grid. You don't have to do it the same way as mine or anything. It's just a habit I've gotten into for when I'm placing my first object. If I'm planning on using the mirror, oh, they really need to fix that shortcut for changing grab point. Alright, so I place a cube in the middle basically just to keep my center line for the mirror. That way I know that I have it later on if I move things around or mess something up. I also make a separate sculpture and place another block. That will be just my center line for my mirror for my hilt. Again, you don't need to do either of those things. It's just something that I do for my own personal sanity. And then so just make a skinny rectangle and stretch it way out. To what you think looks like a good blade size. I usually like to work at a pretty good size. Looks good enough for me. Then you want to get out a sphere and split it in half and hollow it out a little bit. Not all the way hollow, but like a decent amount. And then stretch it way out. This is going to be what you use to make your blade cut. I'm just positioning it right now. It's easier to see when it's like this than when I put it into subtract mode. Basically, you just want to get it centered on there. Move it around until you get a good angle on the bottom piece there. And then you're going to want to flatten it down more. Don't worry about if it's not super flat because you can kind of tweak it after the fact. And try and make sure it's centered, of course. In case you're wondering, this is not the same one from the thumbnail. I made a separate one for the thumbnail using the exact same method. With one different step, which I'll explain later, if I remember. Just making it a little bit thinner. Make sure you do both sides equally on opposite sides of the mirror. And then just grab a cylinder, set it to subtract, stretch it way out. And that's going to be for your top cut. Just scale it and move it basically until you get it where you're happy with it matching the curve of the bottom of the blade. And then you just need to get rid of this little leftovers on the bottom. Bam, that's gone. So there's your like rough shape of the blade. Now again, I'm going to make my grid smaller. And again, the same on both sides. Just shrinking it down a bit more. You can count your grid movements if you need to keep track. And this is the only part it's not difficult, but it can be janky. I think it would probably be easier on the DualShocks, but I've never used the DualShocks, so I could be completely wrong on that. You're going to want to turn... Well, actually, I leave the grid on. No, I'm going to turn it off. You can leave the grid on for the first cut, but it's just still not as precise. So basically, you just want to make this little first section to where you're at least generally happy with the look of it. Also, yeah, I changed the color. I don't know if you noticed that. I changed the color to a lighter color for where the blade's going to have a cut. It's basically you just stamp one piece down, and then you're just going to clone that thing all the way to the end. This is the part I think would be easier with a DualShock. That looks good enough. And for the end here, I usually will use a flattened sphere, but for the sake of this, I'm just going to do a quick one using these same cylinders. And you can already kind of see it's looking pretty bladey. Then you're going to want to just kind of cut off the ends until you get the overall shape. Well, not both ends, but the one end. Just until you get to a length and like shape that you're happy with. Of course, I'm not as happy with the one I'm doing right now as I am with the one in the thumbnail. But I'm trying to be quick. And I'm not going to make the hilt in this tutorial, but I'm going to throw one of my hilts from one of my other swords on it, just so you can get an idea of how it looks. The Brutal Blade. The hilt on this thing is pretty katana looking. That's like pretty much it. I mean, if you want a tutorial on the hilts, I can do another tutorial. But I've done a whole bunch of different katana blades, and I was never really happy with the shape of them. I usually just use a stretched oval, or I clone along the bottom to get the curve, kind of like how we got the cut in the blade. But I was never really happy with the shape, and then I tried to do one with the hollow sphere like we did in this tutorial, and I really liked the look. That's the one in the thumbnail. And it seems to be pretty easy. It's still not perfect. I need to angle this blade a bit more so that it matches the hilt. And I forgot to make it shiny metal, which of course just really sells the look. That's a bit better. And that's pretty much it. Like you can decorate the blade, make a cool hilt for it, add unique cuts, rails along the side, paint effects on it, add glowing things, whatever you want. But the main blade seems to be the part that everyone that I talked to is having issues with. I think this is a pretty easy way to do it. It's a 10-minute tutorial, but it only was like, what, 4 cuts to make the actual blade, and you can get results like that. Seems pretty cool. If you want a tutorial for hilts, let me know in the comments. If you want to learn how to make some swords like these bad boys, which are my 3 other favorites I've made, let me know. I will absolutely do it. They're actually pretty easy. And there's some pretty cool tricks I could probably teach you guys that you might not know yet. I hope this helped somebody out, especially the people that were asking for help. And hopefully I can get some more stuff out like this soon. I absolutely love Dreams. I love talking about it. I love teaching people. I love helping people. I love learning from people. I just love freaking Dreams, man. It's insane. It's everything. Dreams is my life. Don't tell my dog. Don't tell my wife. Yeah, I have a wife. I'm old. No one's watching at this point anyways, right? Yeah, I figured.